you know, I mean, we feel like if, you know, I want to share with you a little bit as well, because you're important to the kingdom of God just as well. So we're going to be talking about marriage, building up that, and then we'll end the series talking to single adults and just, you know, the value of to the kingdom of God as far as that goes. But listen, the word resist simply means this. It means to be flexible, to be pliable. After being bent or stretched, it's able to recoil, to spring back into shape. Resilient means, and listen, anybody here that's married or you have a family, you know that in order to, you got to be resilient, right? I mean, because there, some of the guys are going, amen. I mean, it's a constant. I mean, it seems like there's always something. And listen, we've got to be pliable. We've got to be flexible. We've got to have God on our side and that relationship strong, because you just never know what's going to come up. You know, and then we just need to be resilient, able to be able to you know, spring back into shape and just get on to the next challenge, you know, that lies ahead. But and that's what I want to do, is just share with you some things over the next several weeks that we can learn to be resilient about. Now I want to just dig in and start talking to you about it. Over the next 5 weeks, we're going to be talking about the major problems and struggles that families and marriages face today. Back in the Christianity Today did an article and talked about the greatest concerns that Christian marriages had in 2016. I don't know where they got the research from and all that sort of stuff, but these are the things specifically that they came up with. These are the top 5 things, you know, that Christian marriages struggle with today. Listen carefully. Communication, but not just communication. I know guys hate that word, communication. I know guys are going, just talk. Can you talk? Listen, that's a tough one, I know. But specifically, not just communication, but arguing. I never thought about that. But in the top 5, the number 1 trouble in Christian marriages, according to this, maybe it's not true in your marriage, I don't know, is arguing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Listen, if you're sitting here today and you go, we're so happy we never argue. Listen, I'm just telling you, listen, that's, I don't know, either we're not telling the truth, you're just super spiritual. You know, I don't know what the deal is, but I don't know. But anyway, whatever the case. The second one was trust. Man, it seems like there's a lot of trust when it comes to couples today. Money. Money is a huge issue for a lot of families today. Now, in here that I came to find out this was improper grammar, not equally yoked. You know, or so it probably should be unequally yoked. So, you know, the school teacher, you know, changed that, you know, all that sort of stuff. So, proper grammar, unequally yoked. And we're talking about spiritually speaking. We're not talking about hobbies or interests, you know what I mean? We're talking about spiritually speaking. Unequally yoked. One thinks that the other, that they're more spiritual than the other, you know, or whatever it may be. So that's a huge issue for a lot of couples today. And how about this one, the very last one, and I know this one's powerful. Unreasonable expectations. Anybody fans of the Bible? No. Yes. Oh, thank you. We got one honest person in the room. Yeah. Give her a round of applause. Yeah. One honest person. Somebody's watching it. I mean, it's like they do it like 12 times a year. I mean, I don't even know how they find so many people that are saying whatever the case. But I mean, I'm telling you, I mean, if you were to watch those shows or read magazines or see these movies, everything is just, you know, life is perfect and it's great, and oh, if yours is not like this and something's wrong. Listen, real life is different, isn't it? Yeah, you know, I mean, it can't be great, it can't be romantic, it can't be wonderful. I'm just saying that sometimes, you know, the reality is a little bit different. So these are the things that we are going to look at over the next several weeks and talk about. And I'm going to take a different approach. I'm not taking traditional scriptures, you know, that talk about the roles of men and women, husbands and wives, and the church and their kids, and all those scriptures are great. I'm just going to take a couple different scriptures like today and just compare them and contrast them and do some different challenges with you. Let's talk a little bit about not necessarily communication, but talk about arguing today. Look at these 2 scriptures one more time. Let's get real for just a second. If we're going to focus on specifically arguing, then you got to realize that there is a huge tug of war taking place. And you can really say that it's because these 2 things are at play. Listen carefully to me. Look at James, the 4th chapter, verse 1 and 2. What causes fights and quarrels among you? Now somebody will go, it's their fault. If they would just straighten up, if they would just do it up, then we wouldn't have it. All right, here we what James says, but don't they come from the desires that battle within you? That's kind of turns it around immediately, doesn't it? Next thing we know, go, wait a minute, that's not funny. Because we've got to look within ourselves for just a second. You desire, now he uses pretty strong language here. He says, you desire, but you do not have, so you kill. Don't take that literally. Don't take out your spouse. Let's not do that today. You know what I'm saying? Well, that's what he said. No, they didn't like that. You desire, and he's talking about really the death, the destroying of a marriage. We know that one of every 2 marriages fail the first time. We know 2 out of every 3 second marriages fail. Listen, it's tough to be married nowadays because the world man says that it's just a toss away deal. It really does. It doesn't really mean a whole lot. It means a lot to God. But listen, it's a challenge. You covet, but you cannot get what you want. That's a harsh reality, isn't it? We covet, because we sit back and we say, if my spouse was just like their spouse, boy, everything would be okay. If he treated me like Jim treats Susie, then we would just be perfect. Well, go ask them how it's going. I mean, we never know. I think the grass is greener somewhere else. May just have some quick fertilizer on it for a second and then go down in a couple of weeks. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Whatever the case. But that's what it says. Then he follows it back up and says, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and you fight. So whenever we argue, usually that's what's going on. We want them to straighten up, or we want something that we want, or we want a situation to work out the way that we want it to work out. Or if you just do what I said, then everything would be okay. If you follow and do it my way. Yeah, I don't know if that's working for you or not, but just let me know. We got to figure this out later. But that's what he says, though. But then he follows that right up and says, you do not have, now he's talking about the reality here, because you do not ask God. Wait a minute. All of a sudden James turns it around again. It's not just on us. Listen, we want to, what's warring inside of us, if they get it together, then I'm going to be okay. James says that's not what it is. But then it's even deeper than that. What about God? Where's God at in the equation in our marriage? Now, we know that he's talking about everyday life right here. We know that you can apply this to materialism. We can apply this to all of our wants and all of our wishes. But truthfully, hopefully, you want and desire a marriage that is, you find satisfaction, you find fulfillment, you find happiness, one that you hope that blesses other people and blesses your kids, and God is pleased with it. You want to honor God, with it. If you remember your vows, and what is those vows all about? Remember, it's not just about you. Matter of fact, the marriage ceremony is very little about us, but it's all about the big picture, isn't it? It's about how God and you team up together. That cord of 3 strands is not easily broken when you have a husband, a wife, and God. Where God's left out of the equation and there's just a husband and wife, then sometimes the battle rages, doesn't it? Listen, I know many marriages today, instead of more of like a godly marriage, it's more like a war zone. It's really not them, it's me. It's what I've got going on inside that needs help with. Generally speaking, if you think about this, I think sometimes the reason why there's so much passion and arguing can take place is because, who are we more, in love with or care more about than our spouse? Spend so much time together and all those different kinds of things, and it seems like the people that we really truly love the most would take out our frustrations on them the most, and that we know that our spouse get that from us. But it takes a lot of humility to turn and say, okay, listen, it's not your fault. It's because something that I'm dealing with. It's because something that's going on the inside is unsettled inside of me, and I haven't turned it over to God yet. I've been taking it out on you. But this is what the psalmist says. He said, listen, God, you search me. This is what he says, God, and know my heart. I've told you many times before, what has your heart has your attention. So we've got to ask that question when we're arguing and when we can't seem to get along and things aren't working out the way that we wished our marriage would work out. When it says, test me and know my anxious thoughts. I think too many times we blow past this. We say, search me, O God, and know my heart. And then I think we move right past this, but we look at the depth of what he says right here. He says, test me. Listen, God, look into me, search my heart, look into me deeply, and let myself be vulnerable, let me be open enough, to say that I really want this to work out, so I need you to look deep inside. But this is what he says. Look at this phrase, know my anxious thoughts. You know what he's talking about? He's talking about the temptation to sin. Upcoming sin, the upcoming thing that I'm tempted to do. So when it comes to an individual, he's saying, listen, know what I'm on the verge of giving into. What I'm on the verge of doing that I know is not good. And I know that it's not healthy. And I know that it's not right. We all have those vices in everyday life. We all have those temptations. We all have those struggles in our life. But then it's compounded whenever we're married and we can't get away from that person that we love the most. And then right there in the heat of the moment, he's saying, here, listen, be careful before you get overtaken by that temptation that's going to turn into something, boy, you hadn't have said or hadn't have done. And it's hard to come back from that, isn't it? Boy, it's hard to come back from that. Anybody in the room got regrets on something that you said to someone else or did to someone else or said to your spouse or did to your spouse that, oh my gosh, we just wish so badly to take that back. But they don't have to carry that for the rest of their life or your marriage. Listen, the psalmist is trying to talk us off the ledge, trying to grab our attention. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Man, see if my heart's pure, see if my heart, see if my heart is where you want it to be. Pull me back, reel me back in from that thing that I sure hope I do not give into, and lead me in a way that is right and good and pure and healthy and honorable in this marriage. That's two different comparisons. That's two different worlds apart, isn't it? That's why James starts it off. There's a war that's raging. We see it every day when people lose the battles. And so many people are left to have to pick up the pieces. So why all the arguing and the things that happen? And I heard someone call these are the 4 lethal marriage killers. These are the things that cause people to, these are the things that happen when people argue, and it's hard to come back from these things. So all I want to do is just mention these things to you and make sure that we get a grip and we get an understanding and know that these are not healthy to help us whenever we argue. And we're going to hear again from the Psalms and then close up with this today. Well, if you're taking notes, these are 4 things that you do not want to happen in the heat of a marriage argument. Criticism, contempt, becoming defensive, and stonewalling. Let's think about that for a minute and break these down. Think about criticism for a minute. You ever notice that criticism always boils down to motivation? We want to do it our way, or we want to be right. There's always a hidden motivation for the reason why we tear somebody down. Have you ever thought about that before? Especially think about the communication, think about arguing between a spouse. Whenever we turn from the issues to attacking one another, then we know that the marriage is in trouble. Because so many times we want to major in the minors and get off course instead of the things that really do matter. Therefore, criticism criticism is one of those things that, like I said earlier, those things are hard to come back for. Some of the things and some of the personal attacks that we say, and some of the things that we do through it all the time are complaints. You know, I mean, they can be worked out if someone listens and we're able to communicate back and forth and someone apologizes for it. We accept their apology and we try to put it behind us and we try to move on. But whenever someone continues to throw that back into our face and then they decide that that's going to become their spouse's character flaw, and they're going to continue to bring that up and hold that against them and never let them off. And then, you know, criticism takes over, then listen, it's an incredibly tough thing for a marriage to survive that kind of arguing. Whenever they can never anymore make you happy or never do anything right. You know what happens whenever we battle and we fight with criticism? It becomes the one that's criticizing, it becomes a huge character flaw. You ever been around somebody that complains constantly? I've watched it happen. I've watched people that, you know, happy-go-lucky, just, man, you love to be around them and all that sort of stuff, and the next thing you know, you can tell something a little bit different. They start complaining about this and complaining about that and criticizing this. And listen, it's a tough slope to go down because it makes everybody around them uncomfortable. Now you think about that and then put it into a marriage. Nothing else in the world that can make anybody happy. Their boss doesn't make them happy. The sports team doesn't make them happy. Whatever it might be, their hobbies. And then next thing you know, someone's trying to be married to that person. Listen, criticism is tough. But the one that continually criticizes and cannot forget and holds that kind of a grudge, and they become bitter, it becomes a character flaw. And that character flaw has got to be dealt with. Secondly, there's contempt. The word contempt means the loss of admiration for your spouse. Does everybody in the room remember whenever you first met your spouse, what caught your eye? Either they were pretty, or handsome, or it was the way they talked to you, or it's where you saw them at, you know, whatever. I remember whenever I saw Cindy, I was up there sitting in the bleachers, I told you before, and she was sitting down there, she was down there on the basketball game, she was leading, and I was like, hey, there's a curly-headed girl down there jumping up and down doing herkies and all that. I was like, yeah, who is that? I was asking around to finally somebody said, I know who she is. I broke up with a girl I was with and said, I'm going to go over there and ask her out. It just so happened they were best friends, but oh well, I didn't know that. I didn't know that at the time, so here's your parting flag. Whatever. But I mean, but think about that. Remember how much you loved them? And then once you got to know them, this is what happened. That love turned into admiration. I mean, you admired them. The way they lived their life, their stances, their beliefs, their work, how they made you feel. But then somewhere along the way, probably because of criticism not dealt with, then you started having some contempt for them. You lost that admiration. And that's a tough one to come back from. But that's whenever we really go for the jugular in an argument. It's when there's contempt for your spouse and you've lost that admiration and they don't make you feel the way you thought they once did. That's a real huge challenge. It could be because something they said, because maybe because they hurt you somewhere along the way. Maybe you just decided that they weren't who you thought they were. You questioned their motives. You questioned all of them. Maybe their shortcomings and their faults over time, and you just can't get it out of your mind. That's going to come out in an argument. That's going to come out in a marriage. That's going to come out in everyday life. And the loss of admiration, the loss of that person that you once put up on a pedestal that you admired so much is going to be a huge marriage killer. What about defense? Now I know the natural reaction of criticism and condemnation is to be defensive. And you would really hope that somebody, if they were criticizing you, you would really hope that they were trying to encourage you and do it in such a way that it's positive to help you, to strengthen you. But whenever it comes across the other way, the natural reaction and the fleshly reaction is to immediately become defensive and then to sling it back at them and turn it around on them and really maybe not really deal or listen to. Maybe there's a little tidbit of truth there that we need to know, but because we instantly jump to being defensive, for whatever reason. You know as well as I do, the argument doesn't go anywhere, does it? In fact, well, it does go. It goes south, doesn't it? It goes south. When that argument goes south, any kind of communication, any kind of resolve, any kind of moving forward at that moment is almost impossible, isn't it? It's almost impossible. So you're talking about the breakdown of communication. Whenever we're involved with that in our spouse, whenever we are feeling that way and we're criticizing and we've got contempt and we're immediately jumping to defense, there's also that person that stonewalls. You ever been around somebody that you try to have a conversation with and they never say a word back to you? Or they're talking about something, you go, wait a minute, we're on two different conversations here. Think about in a marriage relationship, whenever that happens, when somebody's stonewalling. This is what stonewalling means: delaying, blocking, repeating and refusing to give answers by evasive replies or the use of simple silence. You ever been around somebody that you just can't get an answer from? Yeah, I mean, listen, we see it a lot in politics, don't we? I can't remember who that guy was, but it was like one of those debates or something like that was like, 25, Republican guys up there. I can't remember who it was, but one guy kept asking one guy about something else, and he kept repeating his stump speech over and over, and he'd say it, and he kept sitting there going, even I know that that's not exactly right. But I'm him so much that this is going to be my response to anything, it was completely, totally missing the point. It looked like a fool. I'm sitting there thinking, how many times in marriage does that happen? You're pouring out your heart, or maybe you're frustrated, you're trying to get something across, and you just really wish they would hear you, and they're hung up on some minor detail that doesn't mean anything, or blowing it off, or not talking, or just giving evasive answers. That's called stonewalling. Listen, a lot of people in life have gotten good in opening their mouth and never saying anything. Haven't they? Think about your marriage for just a moment and some of the bigger issues that you think that you may have. There's someone that's stonewalling. Who's the one being evasive? Who's the one putting off the inevitable that really needs to be dealt with in order for this marriage to become strong again? Well, listen, it could be you. It could be me. It could be your spouse. I don't know. But see, we see it every day in life. But somewhere along the way, we can't help but realize that maybe we might be that one. Let's go back to the scripture for just a minute. The psalmist says this, and we understand this. He says, he doesn't say search your partner. See what's wrong with them. That's the easy thing to do, isn't it? And that's the temptation. That's the thing that I see and you probably see. But he says to search me, O God, and know my heart. Know what's inside. Listen, there's a lot of people that we can fool. There's a lot of people in this life that we can pull the wool over. There's a lot of people that may think, man, we're the greatest thing since sliced cheese. But God knows us. And I guarantee you, our spouses probably know us as well. We've been together any length of time. We can't run from that. That's the reason why one of the things that I believe are so important to marriage is prayer. Listen, a couple of men that prays together, a couple that can stay together. I know that rhymes, but But that's true. It's got to be one of the most intimate things to do with your spouse is to pray. Because you can't pull the rug over their eyes. They know your heart. They know what you've said and what you've done, and you can't act like none of this stuff ever happens when you're, representing your spouse as you talk to God. God knows and they know. So the psalmist is sitting here saying, search me, God, know my heart, test me, know what's going on inside of me, and help me to work on that before it comes out in a way that is not good for my family. See if there's any offensive way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. What he's trying to say, I think, not just in everyday life as a Christian, but as a believer and as a Christian who's a believer that is married and in a relationship, as we stand before God and we're no longer two, but we're one before God, we have to know and understand that We have to take our responsibility for what's taking place in our marriage and in our lives. We can't push that away and negate that. We've got to make sure that that's being dealt with. Too many times we want to say it's somebody else's fault. But sooner or later, we've got to take that on responsibility in a little bit. And you've heard me say this before, really the only thing in a marriage that we can change, that we can make different, that we can in any way wrap our head around, is the only thing that we can change is ourselves. How we react, how we think, how we talk, how we act. I read this story this past week. It's not really that funny, but it sort of, this pastor was marrying this couple, and they got together on rehearsal evening the night before, and this woman, the bride that was getting married, was really nervous, about being up in front of people. And, just told the pastor, said, listen, I don't think I can do this. I just don't think I can walk down. I just freak out too much in front of people. So he said, no, let me tell you what we need to do. He said, had everybody leave, and what we're going to do. So he walked her in the doors. I want you to focus just a minute on the aisle. Just look at the aisle. Focus, walk in the room. Don't look at everybody. Just focus on the aisle, where you need to go. Where do you need to go? She said, to the altar. Okay, walk in there, focus on the aisle. Now, look at the altar. Now focus on the altar so you'll know where to start taking your steps. And once you start taking your steps, then take your aisle to the altar and then focus on your groom. So that's what he said. That's what you got to do. Walk in there and you got the aisle, you got the altar, and you got him. So she, all night long, she kept repeating that to herself. And the next day when the time and the music started to play and everybody stood up in eager excitement for what was to happen, as she started making her way towards her groom, everybody got a little bit bothered and a little bit concerned when all they were hearing was, I'll alter him. I'll alter him. I'll alter him. Some of you are just not getting it. I'll alter him. I'll alter him. I know that's silly, it's goofy, it's really not that funny, but thank you for humoring me. But this is the truth though, isn't it? So many people think if we could just get married, it's going to be all right. I'm going to change them. If I could just get them to listen to me. The truth is, we can't alter anybody. That's a false narrative. I'll alter him. It doesn't work. All we can do is change ourselves. Get our lives where God would want them to be. Listen, I want to close with this. I just want you to think about this just for just a minute. All this stuff about arguing and I'm just asking you today to take a little responsibility. Just look within yourself and see those things that if we're not careful could come out one of these four ways. And just know that there's going to be damage. But just ask God to search your heart and to see what needs to be different. Find somebody to pray with, somebody to help you, maybe to talk it through. And I believe you'll see the changes in your relationships whenever God becomes a part of that three. This past week, I shared with some of the guys on Monday evening, and it happened a couple more times this past week. I told this to our life group Friday night, but 3 times this week, for some reason, I got called in to go and visit some individuals. I got to go sit with a 43-year-old man dying of cancer, married with kids. And a couple days later, I got asked to go and sit with a 53-year-old man dying of cancer, married with kids. And on the same day as the first, I got a phone call and asked if I'd go visit with a 63-year-old woman dying of cancer. And as I went there and I sat with them and I listened to their tears and listened to their stories, listened to their heart out, they didn't, when they loved God. And they knew they were going to heaven. They didn't have any doubts about that, but they did not want to leave their spouse and their kids. And it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. It was one of the toughest days I think I've ever had. But the thing that I told our love group Friday night, the thing that really stuck out in my mind was they loved God and they knew heaven was their home. But they were really grieving the loss of time We don't think 43-year-olds need to die so soon. The closer I get to the 53, I think that's too soon. And knowing close to my mom's age, 63, I'm sitting there thinking, that's too. But the thing that really broke my heart was there was really nothing. They knew all the spiritual answers. And they believed the right things, but they were grieving and more loss of time. They wished they hadn't wasted time fussing and fighting over the silly things in life. They wished their conversations mattered more. They took advantage of the opportunities to be together. And they grieved the loss of time. My friends, you and I are not promised time. And because of that, don't you think some of the things that don't matter, maybe they could be put in a better perspective? Don't you think there's no time to stop not forgiving? We ought to start forgiving and just letting go. Because there are a lot of things in life we just can't change no matter what we say or no matter what we do. Arguing can be productive, but it can be a waste of time. I want to challenge you today to make the most of every day and every minute that God has given you. You see, sitting with this one particular man, he told me, he said, listen, he said, I just try to make every moment count. Walks in the door, I tell her how much I love her. I call my kids every day. He said, I tell them how proud I am. He said, I don't nitpick them apart anymore. He said, I try to take advantage of that time. He said, I told my wife, my kids as soon as I could, how much I love them. We're never promised tomorrow. In everyday life, and with our family, with our spouse, and with our families, to let them know how precious they are to you. Now, 6 years from now. All we've got is now. My friends, I want to challenge you today. What are we doing today? And what a gift of God they are to you. Let's let the stuff that doesn't matter in the big picture, can we agree just to let it go and start fresh? Friends, you think we can do that?
Amen.
Amen. I'm going to ask the band to come up, and we're going to make our way into our offering time. Please don't forget to register for our Better Together conference in September. And don't forget, prayer team, we want to see you next Sunday morning. If you're not out of town for the weekend, we'd love to see you at 9:30. We'll have about a 20-minute prayer time together before we come to church. But God bless you. Thank you so much for being here today. I just want Elizabeth's mom, she's here today. I know her mom's been going through a lot of challenges health-wise, and we're praying for you, Elizabeth, for your family, her mom, Pat, and her dad, Mike, and for them. So we'll keep praying for them through it all. But we love you. I'm so glad that you're here today. I'm going to ask Brother Bud Grove if he wouldn't mind to have our prayer of dismissal, pray for our offering for our time together. Let's pray together.
Father God, thank you for this day, Lord. And thank you in particular for this morning of just sitting in this room and understanding resilience, Lord. I pray that the message of Mark has brought to us today sticks to us, in particular to us as husbands and wives, that we just become more resilient, that we can pray over and with for one another each and every day. Just take that time and surrender to you as a family. Father, we thank you that we come here. Thank you that we have the means to do so. Please accept our giving as our way of discipline and obedience to you. I pray these things in Jesus' name.